So, one thing I wanted to talk about today is stigmas. So, in one of my group chats, we were talking about how it's difficult to speak up about eating disorders because a lot of the times people are embarrassed or ashamed or they don't want their friends to know that they have a problem. So, one of the things we were kind of discussing was maybe that's why this kind of level of care has been allowed to continue because people are afraid to be identified. People are exhausted from trying to get treatment. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about then was the stigma about it. Um, it is something very difficult for people to talk about. Any kind of mental health issue is, but that's exactly how stigmas get broken is by talking about them. And I guarantee you, every time you kind of mention or talk about knowing somebody with an eating disorder, you hear about other people with eating disorders, and it's just one of those things. It is more common than you think, but people are still a little bit afraid to discuss it. So I'm hoping that it's something people can be a bit more open about. I think being open about things and being more willing to discuss them, besides the sense of shame or embarrassment, can help break some of these stigmas. So I myself, I suffer from generalized anxiety disorder. So over the years, it's something that I had really, really struggled with, especially when I first moved to Ireland 8 years ago. I'm from the United States originally, and my anxiety after moving here was so bad. I could hardly function. Some days I was calling out sick a lot to work. I was finding it difficult commuting back and forth into town and back home. So it really took a toll on my mental health. It was a big adjustment for me. So I ended up, it took me, I think, about 3 years, if not more, after moving here to finally get therapy. And it was the best thing I ever did. She was the best therapist I had ever had. I had had therapy before in the US, but this is my first time getting therapy in Ireland, and I have to say it was the best thing I ever did. Still, it is still something that I live with. I think it's impossible to get rid of anxiety, but it is something that you learn to manage, and it's similar to eating disorders in the sense that it's one of those things people are still a little bit afraid to talk about being anxious as well or being depressed, but it's so extremely common. And I think people would find that there's a huge support system of people out there with similar experiences. So I don't see the shame in talking about it, to be honest. And I think it enables us to be able to help each other when we talk about things that are difficult. When I first started opening up more about my anxiety, it was difficult and maybe a bit awkward. But then the more I kind of talked about it with people, the more comfortable I became talking about it. And this led to me, learning about other people's therapists and what worked for them. And I was able to recommend therapists, and we were able to support each other. And, like one of my anxieties revolves around going places. So basically, thinking about directions and where to park and how to park and all this, ridiculous anxious thoughts. And so I had some friends who were really helpful, and they would help me figure out like where I could park and this kind of stuff ahead of time just to ease the anxiety a bit. Um, so it did help to open up and to talk about it, and I've accepted that it is part of who I am. Like, because of therapy, I do have it very well under control. The past few years have been amazing, to be honest, the best that I've had it under control. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't still flare up sometimes. I was always a very self conscious person growing up. I was always very worried about what other people thought about me. So, one of the best pieces of advice or the best things that I had learned over the years, and sometimes this just comes with age and growing up, is that you have to learn to let go of what other people think about you. And the way that I learned to kind of accept myself and to be comfortable in my own skin was to understand that it was kind of a control thing, really. So, say, like, if I imagined myself being surrounded by a big group of people And then you have one person thinking my hair looks ugly, and one person thinking my hair looks nice, and one person thinking my hair should be curly, and one person thinking my hair should be straight. And the next thing you know, I have 100 different opinions from 100 different people about what I should look like, or what I should do, or what I should think. And so when I realized it from that perspective, I thought I cannot please 100 separate people. I could not be what each individual person wants me to be. I can only be me, and that's it. And so that was the most powerful thing that I've learned growing up, is just to be me, and that's it, because I can't make everybody happy. I can only be comfortable with myself. I can only make myself happy. I can only be imperfect. I can only be weird. I can only learn from my own mistakes. So by trying to please other people, really it gives them a sense of control over you. You're letting them control how you look or how you think or how you act, instead of just accepting who you are and being who you are.